Now, to continue on some of these thoughts, particularly still on the line of gun safety, hunters, like I said, hunters today have got too many distractions. Hunting is just something they do now and then. It's not just a way of life with them, and particularly if they're not really a gun nut, because it's something they have. They drag it out and go hunting, put it up, and that's it. That's the extent of it. Well, and one of the let me relate a little instance concerning a muzzleloader. The gun has to be a muzzleloader, and it is one of the safest guns going. So don't get me wrong there. I mean, the gun, it's an inline muzzleloader, and I don't care for inline muzzleloaders. I'm a traditional hunter, so I don't have them. I don't like them. I don't use them. I'm just not an inline fan. Period. I'm a traditionalist. Period. But so, whatever you want to do, that's fine. I mean, it's just me. Everybody can do their own thing. They can hunt the way they want, use whatever they want. That's fine. That's fine with me. But this particular gun, it's a night. It's a night. The night muzzleloader is one of the safest design guns there is when used correctly. But you would be positively amazed at how many people don't use it correctly. So just in my close-knit circle, let me give you an example or two. A few years ago, a friend of mine and I were going to go muzzleloader hunting up in one of the higher mountains in Virginia, and we get up there and it's cold and snowy and icy, and at the trailhead, this little parking lot, I mean, man, it is slick. It's packed down ice, it's slick. Well, we get there before daylight and get our stuff ready, and we walk across the parking lot and we hit the trail that's going to take us up the mountain. And from the trailhead there, and just we're starting up the trail. Just as we start on the trail, another vehicle pulls into the parking lot with its lights on and stuff, Their lights go off. They take their lights off, and oh boy, almost immediately, boom! This big loud boom, and I thought, oh my God, they've shot my buddy Kevin. They shot Kevin, and I look around. And they're in the pre-dawn light. Kevin's laying there on the ice and snow, wiggling around on the ice and snow. I thought, oh my Lord, I think the boy's been shot, and so I'm standing there kind of dumbfounded, and he wiggles around there and he starts getting up, And so I start to try to help him up, and he's going like, and I realized his gun went off. It was his gun that went off. He said, I don't understand what happened. I didn't even have it cocked. And it went off. Well, what had happened? His feet flew, and he had it on his sling and had it over his shoulder, hung behind on his sling, like most people would carry a gun on a sling. And his feet flew out when he flew up backwards, and he went straight down. Well, the buttstock hit that hard-packed ice. Now, like I said, the Night is one of the safest guns going, used correctly. But you got to understand how it works, and so many people don't. The Night has a trigger safety. It has a safety that blocks your trigger. Well, Kevin said, I didn't even have it cocked and I had the safety on. Well, the trigger safety was on. That's true. You couldn't pull the trigger. And if you're familiar with the night, you pull back the plunger, the striker, the hammer, the mechanism, the firing mechanism, the plunger. You grab it and you pull it back to cock position. Well, it's got a screw mechanism on it. When you screw that mechanism down, screw it in, the edge of the screw system hits on the breech of the gun, and it keeps the anvil, the striker, it keeps the face of the striker off your percussion cap. Okay, so when you're going to shoot it, you got to screw that thing back out. You got to screw that second safety out. Whoops, which exposes the face of your striker so it can hit your percussion cap or whatever, whatever cap you got in there. Now you can put caps or 309s, whatever. You exposes that. Well, Kevin, like so many, he think, well, I got the safety on, which he did, but it's a trigger safety, and I don't even have it cocked. But you didn't. It was not cocked, but the safety screw part was screwed out, backed off. So in effect, his anvil is laying right against the percussion cap. It's laying right against the cap, right against it, pressing right against it. So when he fell down, when he took that hard fall, and the buttstock hit on that ice, it allowed that the firing mechanism, the striker, it forced the striker down a little bit. And of course, it's under spring tension to push it this way, so it was forced down, and then the spring tension popped it right back against your primer, and it went off. Whereas if you'd had the screw mechanism out, and it did that, and the way it could go off. But Kevin think, well, I don't even have it cocked. If I don't cock it, when I get ready to shoot, I won't have to mess around with this screw mechanism. All I got to do is cock it. It's quicker to cock than it is to sitting there messing around with this screw system. Well, never realized. It's not cocked, but the firing mechanism is right against your cap. So a jar can set it off. And it did. So, and that bullet went right up my back. He was right behind me, straight behind me. And when he fell down, that muzzle was pointing, shot straight up my back. I mean, it could have been a bad day. It could have been a bad day, but thank God the bullet went straight up. It could have been bad. So it scared the wad now. Kevin, he said, and he explained to him, show him how this thing worked and how it happened, how a gun that had the safety on and wasn't even cocked went off. Very easily, do it every time, as a matter of fact. So he said, oh my goodness, my dad was hunting with a friend. His dad was hunting with a friend of his that had the same kind of night that Kevin had. So he goes and tells his dad, boy, you got to be careful with them things. I mean, those things can go out. And his dad said, same thing happened with the bill today. The same thing. The exact same thing. The gun went off, but it's a safe gun. And had both instances the gun been carried like it's designed to be carried, they're perfectly safe. They're so super safe that people are trying to get around. Well, I don't need to be that safe. I just got the safety on right here, and if I don't cock it, it'll be fine. I won't have to fool with that screw mechanism. Whew, boy, oh boy. I mean, if you're not going to fool with the screw mechanism and you screw it all the way out and you got your trigger safety on, it's like an ordinary gun with a half cock position. It's in a, you know, it's pretty safe. And like I said, nothing is 100% safe, but it's pretty safe because you're relying on that half cock notch, you know, to hold it. Which a tremendous number of guns on the market have a half cock notch, and as long as the hunter does his thing and keeps the gun pointed in a safe direction, everything's fine. Be fine. But not understanding your gun can cause a tremendous amount of problems. You know, and I forgot to say, relate one little old incident talking about the same thing, that people not understanding how their gun works. And this pertains to that same night muzzleloader. So this friend of mine, we go up country, up in the national forest, and camped out and all, and he gets out and he gets up a tree stand. He's got his night muzzleloader, okay? You got this new, greatest muzzleloader ever built, you know, and all that. So he's proud of this thing, and he's got him on. So he goes out and he gets up a tree stand. Not too long after daylight, a 14-point buck walks up below his tree stand. And the reason he knows it's 14-point buck is it stood there plenty long enough for him to count them. It's right below him, right below him. So he's got this 14-point buck right below his tree stand. So he gets his trusty night muzzleloader out and he points down there at it and click. It just clicked, it didn't go off. He said, oh God. The buck looked around a little bit, went on back about his business. Cocks that thing again, takes that cap off and puts him another one on. And click, he did it again. He said, oh my God, that bug still stood there. So again, he cocks that thing again, puts him another one on there. Third time, buck still stands there. He proceeds to cock and change caps 11 times. Put a total of 11 caps on that gun. It would not go off. So he comes back into camp that afternoon, and he is raising Cain about this great night muzzleloader. 11 times that son of a gun would not go off, and the biggest buck he's ever had an opportunity at in his life turned around and walked off. Oh, hey buddy, the problem is, the problem is, it's not the gun. The gun's working perfectly fine. No, it's not. 11 times that son of a gun would not go off. I said it would not go off because you still had the safety on. No, I didn't. I flipped that safety off and it would not go off. I said, you took one of the safeties off. It's got another one. It's that screw safety around the plunger. You had it screwed all the way into the safe position, and 11 times you tried to shoot it, and that gun did exactly what it was designed to do. It would not fire because you still had safety on. All you had to do was unscrew that thing, take it back in the fire position, and it went off. So go out there, he loads it up again with the thing off like it's supposed to be, and boom, it shoots. Not knowing his gun. He's a big archer. He knows all about the archery, spends all his time on archery. Didn't know beans about his gun. He just got the latest and the greatest, went out, and it would not shoot. He blamed the gun, and the gun performed flawlessly. It was shooter error was what it was, but my goodness. My point is, know your gun. Not understanding your gun can cause a tremendous amount of problems. But there again, that safety, never point a gun to anything you're not willing to kill, will take care of anything, including accidental discharge, just like that one. So follow that rule. Never depend on mechanical anything. Keep your muzzle pointed in a safe direction, and then apply all the mechanical safeties and everything else and all the other rules of safety. Apply all that, you'll be fine. But keep that muzzle pointed in a safe direction, you'll always be fine. Well, surprise, back out here at Quigley again today for a little while. Just gonna come out here and sit around for an hour or so and just kind of observe the fields and see what's going on and see if I see any bucks or any deer or coyotes or whatever. And I got my gun here ready, sitting right here beside me, and the ammo. Coyote comes across the field again today, like he did yesterday or the other day. He can get shot at. And any critter that crosses these fields out here, they don't lollygag around a lot. They get on the crosshair. They don't like being out in that open that much. And so if you get a shot at something, you're gonna have to be ready. You need to be ready. You need to know that if they show up, that you only got a very limited amount of time to get your shot off. So you need to be ready. You need to know your gun, you need to know your load, you need to know the trajectory. You just need to know what it's going to take to get that critter. And put everything you can, stack everything you can in your favor. Don't stack things against yourself. Like the other day when I was sitting out here slapping my jaws, look, a coyote's going right across the field here, and one of the main things that I'm sitting out here for is to try to thin down the coyote population a little bit. Most of the year, I will use something like a 220 Swift or a 2250 or a dedicated varmint rifle, but along come closer to deer season, I get one of my long-range deer rifles out here. And, for practice, I mean, develop confidence and everything else. Anyway, throughout most of the year, you want to use something a little easier to shoot. Not quite so much recoil or expensive to shoot or anything. It's a big one. And this one here is a 7mm Remington mag and a Ruger #1, a superb long range big game rifle. Well, it'd make a superb varmint rifle too, except you don't want to be sat down there shooting it 100 times in a row, unless you want to beat your shoulder to a pulp. But anyway, I like to use my deer rifles early fall, and we're still in the archery season. It's winding down. It's getting closer to muzzleloader season, and I'm anxiously awaiting a gun season, muzzleloader or a regular rifle. I mean, and I think I've said it before. Normally out here at the farm, you don't see bucks. Generally, you don't see bucks until the rut comes on, and then they kind of miraculously just start kind of showing up out of the woodwork. But generally speaking, you just don't see bucks that often. But this year has been an entirely different year. Starting even before the month-long archery season, I started seeing bucks, and that's highly unusual. That just generally don't happen. They're here. And all through the archery season. I mean, I've seen 2 and 3 bucks, good bucks, hanging out together. Good bucks. You're sitting there watching and thinking, well, if the season was just open, I'm sitting here with a rifle to reach out and touch any one of you. I can take either one of you I want, but it's still archery season. And I have threatened to get me a crossbow and try to get one, but I'm not going to do that. I've archery hunted for 50 years or more, and I use longbow and longbows and recurve a little bit, mostly longbow, and all of it with wooden arrows and traditional archer. And I don't like the compounds, don't use compounds. But after tearing both rotor cups, that even light poundage, but heavy poundage longbows like I use, that's out of the question. They're hanging on the wall now. Good memories associated with it, but I can't use them. Just too hard. So I could get a crossbow. I'd go up there and sit and probably get one of those bucks. But I'll just roll the dice and I'll wait for a gun season. Hopefully they'll still be here or come back. That's the main thing that got me concerned. I mean, like I say, usually they only show up during the rut, and they're here a long time before the rut. So, oh Lordy, hope they don't wear out their welcome here at the farm and go somewhere else and not come back during the rut. Or I've never seen it happen like that. It's always, they don't generally show up until the rut. Well, they've been here way before the rut. Does that mean I'm going to have a really good season with a lot of bucks or a lot of deer during the rut, or not see any during the rut? I don't know. But it's been fun to sit out here and watch them. I've got some of them on camera, I've got some of them on video, and then others I just sit here and watch. I mean, sometimes I've seen those 3 big bucks together come out here and they'd stay around the edge of the woods pair eating acorns, I reckon, for an hour. I mean, they stay out for an hour. Till they head down just chomping up a storm. The other day, there was 3 of them up here, and my nephew and a friend and myself. We're over here at I've got a shooting bench setting up. I've got several of them around the farm. I got one set up there at the barn. And we got targets out here, and we're blasting away with muzzleloaders and 270, 7mm mags, and all that stuff, just blasting away. And from the 100-yard target to where the deer was, it's probably 250 yards, something like that. Them deer just keep on eating. Every once in a while, one will raise his head up, look around a bit. They never jumped, they never flinched, they never did anything. And those shots going off with, which tells me that they're accustomed to hearing shots, because they've got to be somewhat local, because they're hearing shots over here from the gun club all the time. The gunshot don't scare them. Just like that. Somebody's over at the club shooting right now. The gun club's just over the hill here. But anyway, I'm sitting out here enjoying the prettiest fall I think I've ever seen. There's an enormous amount of leaves still on the tree. Just absolutely beautiful. And, I have a red green deficiency. Certain reds and greens that you just have a hard time seeing, as well as 20% of the male population has the same thing I got. Well, the absolute best lens that I've found to help, that's one called Sport Orange. That really works good too. But this vermilion, this is Serengeti shooting glass, vermilion color, that I used a lot in sporting clay shooting, competition shotgun shooting. I used it a lot for that, and it really brightens those orange targets up flying through those green woods. And if I take these off, those orange targets flying through green woods can be hard to see. But these, they just pop right out. And it's a beautiful fall, even without these glasses. and having a red-green deficiency. But boy, I miss seeing so much reds. So many reds and orange and stuff. Yellows I see good, but in the orange and red spectrum, there's a lot I just don't see. My gosh, when I put these vermilion glasses on, my land of living. I mean, it's pretty without, okay? Just natural, it's pretty. But, gosh, when I put these glasses on, the color just pops. And I suppose that's the way a person with normal color vision sees it, like I see it with these glasses, I guess, because if you see it any prettier than what I'm seeing with these glasses, you're seeing a pretty world out there, because it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm not trying to be cool and look cool on these things. I'm just looking at a beautiful world and just amazed at how pretty it is. It's pretty without the glasses. Oh my Lord, it is unbelievably pretty with them. So I do use them. So I'm sitting out here just looking. Hopefully the coyote will come back again. See if my deer's still out here. And if I can figure out a way to attach some glue to the bottom of these bucks' feet where they couldn't go too terribly far to make sure they're still here come the gun season. That's got me concerned, honey. It's different. Sitting here, which I do it every year. I come out here, sit with my deer rifle and pot shoot at coyotes or even a groundhog or something like that. Just sit out here looking, watching the deer and seeing what's going on, and trying to do a little varmint hunting while you're at it. But the temperature has warmed up dramatically. It's been colder than crap, but it's warm today. And I mean warm. And the flies, there's some ladybugs, maybe a stink bug or two, and there's wasps and hornets and everything else flying around but flies. Confounded flies. The cattle are all gone, so I guess flies are looking for something else to land on. 3 gobblers just come out in the field up there right now. I think that's them 3 gobblers. Yep. 3 beautiful, big old long-bearded gobblers walking through the field up there. But anyway, we're talking about when it comes to hunting or anything else, don't make things unnecessarily hard on yourself. Do everything you can to put things in your favor, don't put obstacles in your way. Don't make things harder on yourself. And a little example of that, and I'm going to give is, my wife and I had been on been running some errands and come back to the house, and my nephew and a friend of mine, they're out here at the bar at the shooting bench, and they're shooting and doing a little, getting their guns ready for muzzleloader and rifle, getting ready for the season. Will be here shortly. So when I walk in the barn, as soon as I walk in, my nephew's ready to shoot, and I put my earmuffs on and everything, and when he shoots it, pow! I said, boy, you had a real hang fire there. He said, yeah, I know it. He said, we've been out here all afternoon trying to figure out what's wrong. It does it every time. It just keeps on hang fire. Sometimes worse than others, but it always hang fire. So he loads up again. He shoots, pow! But man, that ain't good at all. And he said, I wonder what's the matter with it. I said, well, I don't know. I just got here, but we'll see if we can figure it out. The very first thing I looked at, it's what kind of ignition he was using, and he's got a like most hunters, he's got the latest space age inline, a space age marvel. It's far removed from what I use, traditional muzzleloader. It's a space age contraption. So I figured that, and yeah, it's a a very popular, and as far as quality goes and reliability and stuff like that, it's a good gun. It's a good quality gun, but it's an inline, and I ain't gonna use it. I just don't use inline. See if we can figure out why this thing keeps hang fire. Bad hang fire. So first thing I do, I look over and see what kind of, it's like I said, it's the modern inline and all that kind of stuff. So we know what the gun is, but what kind of loads he using. So the first thing I do, I look over and see what he's using for ignition. And as expected, he's using 209 shotgun primers. I expected that, and that's what he's using. But he's using the muzzleloader reduced power 209s. These, I thought, well, that's good. He's using that. So what's he using for powder? And I look over there and, oh no, not you two. Oh my words. It turned out both of them. Both my nephew and my friend, they're both using blackhorn powder. Lord help. Everything that I'm going to say this is a personal observation. But I've been exposed to all kinds of shooting all my life. I was president of a large gun club for many, many years. I'm a life member of the gun club. I practically live there. It's right here next door it's my next door neighbor here at the farm. You name it, any kind of a gun or any kind of a bow or anything you want to shoot, whatever it is you want to do, I'm familiar with it, okay? And let me go back. Number 10, number 11, and musket caps were all developed many years ago to ignite black powder. Now, black powder has a very low ignition temperature, a very low flash point. It don't take a whole lot of heat to set off black powder, not black horn, black powder. Black powder is super good stuff. It's super good. But it has its drawbacks, it's hard to clean, or most people think it is. It's a little more messy, hard to clean, a little smelly. If you don't clean it, it will cause your gun to rust. So it has its advantages, and and somewhat of maybe even a disadvantage, if you want to call it that. So, when I hunted with muzzleloaders many, many, many years before there ever was a muzzleloader season, at least in my home state. There may have been one somewhere, but I don't know of a state that had it. And I hunted muzzleloaders for many, many, many years. Been a muzzleloader fan for a long, long time. And I had to use them during regular rifle season. And of course, I'd get out and varmint hunt with them, stuff like that. But when you come to deer hunt, you had to use it during the regular rifle season. The only time you could use it. So, anyway, I've used them a long time. Well, when they started having, states started having the muzzleloader season, well, and the purpose initially was to let you experience what your forefathers did. That was sort of the idea behind, actually the archery and the muzzleloader season, but people being what they are, the vast majority of them could care less about tradition, about what their grandfather did. They could care less about that. But they were using the archery. It started out first with the advent of the compound bow. Back when you only had longbow and recurves, there wasn't very many archers. Took too much practice, too much time. everything else. But when it come out the compound bow, it been so easy to shoot and all that kind of stuff. Archery season become popular, and next thing you know, the woods full of archers and all that. Well, we did the same thing with muzzleloader. When the first muzzleloader, of course, was side locked and side lock percussion or flint, and then one by one, states started relaxing their rules and regulations, and oh lordy, they started coming out with the inline, muzzleloaders. Heavens to Betsy. Anyway. And of course, the first inlines used like 10s, 11s, and musket caps, and then of course somebody said, well, let's not use that old-fashioned stuff. Let's get rid of that and let's use something modern. And some of the contraptions that people come up with to use more modern type primers, positively mind-boggling. I've seen some of the gosh awfulest contraptions you've ever seen in your life. Particularly try to use rifle primers. To use regular rifle primers on muzzleloader. Holy moly, it practically took an act of Congress just to load the thing. But anyway, somebody come up with the idea, a 209 shotgun primer with that little flange on it and all that stuff. It didn't take somebody a whole lot of time to figure out what we can use a 209, shotgun primer. It's a whole lot hotter than those old-fashioned 10s and 11s and stuff. And the 10s and 11s, when you shoot them, the old percussion caps, they would fracture. They would kind of split, come apart, and whatever. They'd allow a lot of back pressure to come off. They had a little bit of blowback. Well, that's a good thing. That wasn't a bad thing. When it comes to muzzleloader, that was a good thing. But most modern hunters, they don't realize that. They don't know that. They don't know that that's by design. They don't think your forefathers had enough sense to figure out how to make a percussion cap that wouldn't flare out a little bit and let that pressure off. They didn't give their forefathers credit for anything. So they think, well, them old people, they didn't know what the devil they was doing. So what do? They go and they go make a closed system, get rid of that blowback and all that stuff. They're going to put it in an enclosed system. So they used a 209 shotgun primer. And those things are hot. And yep, oh boy, there's plenty of fire there, to ignite black powder for sure, and even the substitutes, like 777 and Pyrodex and stuff like that. I mean, you got plenty of juice there to ignite that. But that created problems. That closed system with 209, there's so much pressure in there that it created problems. Some of the problems had to do with ignition, failures to ignite, and others had to do with a safety factor. But it turns out that all that pressure in an enclosed system where you don't have that blowback like you got with the number 10, 11, or percussion or musket cap, that pressure would sometimes cause the bullet and or powder to start down the barrel before it ignited. That ain't a good thing. That ain't a good thing at all. So sometimes the powder would be pushed away where you have a failure to ignite. I mean, you're just getting a lot of misfires. So these super hot things were developed and put in there to try to get rid of any misfire. And most of that misfire was because people just didn't have their gun loaded right. Simple as that. We won't get into that right now, but they just didn't have their gun loaded right. A side lock loaded correctly is as close to 100% as you're going to get. But anyway, they were creating problems. I mean, it would develop this hot thing to have all these problems, to get rid of these problems. Now we got problems. We're even getting bulged barrels, blown barrels, breeches about blown up. I mean, they were just having all kinds of problems because that bullet moves down that barrel a little bit before that powder charge goes off. That's an obstruction in your barrel. It can blow your blooming gun up. So they were just having all kinds of problems. So the brass, the the engineers or whatever get together and say, well, we've got to solve this problem. And so they solved the problem by reducing the power of the 209. So they got it down to where it quit having all these problems that it was creating. Now, it's reliable. It's igniting them good and all that. It's reliable, but they're basically right back where they were with the 10s and 11s and that sort of thing. But they don't have a little bit of blowback. They don't have that. But but it's through having reduced power. So people wanting to make money and having bigger and better and all that kind of stuff. Naturally, every time you turn around, there's a new powder coming on. It's new powder. So the latest rage that I know of is blackhorn. Well, blackhorn powder is the hardest to ignite powder that I've personally ever been around. I mean, that's what was causing these misfires. They were using reduced power muzzleloader 209s in an inline. They were using 209 primers specifically developed to be used in inline muzzleloader. They were using that, and everything was fine until they start using Blackhorn 209, you know. Okay, so they got this Blackhorn. Oh, and it's super intensity, and it's increased velocity, and it's easy to clean, and it's got a list of pluses about that long. You know how wonderful it is. But they kind of sort of fail to tell you that this stuff is almost, it's hard to ignite, very hard to ignite. So if they come out and they advertise, and this does this, and it's super intense, and it's high velocity, and it's easy to clean, and it's all these things, confound it, it's hard to ignite. You just can't hardly get it to go off at all. I mean, it's hard to ignite. It's hard to ignite on a good day. And you go out here and you find yourself a cold or damp day, buddy, that stuff is hard to ignite. It's just plain old hard to ignite, period. They're not going to sell it. They couldn't give it away. So they've invested in all this. That's my opinion now. I mean, they've invested in this. They've come up with this wonderful powder that just can't hardly ignite. Can't hardly ignite with a 10 or 11 or anything else. I mean, it's just hard to set off. It's just hard to spark. And they got this. We got this stuff. And we need to sell it. So, yeah. I know. We know that it takes the full power of a full house 209 shotgun primer to set this stuff off. With a full 209, full power 209, it's pretty reliable. It goes off most of the time. So, we market this. This wonderful powder was specifically engineered for 209 shotgun primers. Boy, that sounded good. Specifically engineered for 209 shotgun primer. Well, we've now come full circle. Now you got a powder that pretty much has to have full power 209 in order to ignite. And by having full power 209, you're right back to having the problems that using a full power 209 creates. A little bit of circular reasoning here, you know. They started out with full power 209, created all kinds of problems. They reduced the power to get rid of the problems. Somebody comes along and develops this powder that has to have full power 209s, so now you're right back where you started from. But you've got this wonderful powder. Why make it hard on yourself? Why stack things against you? Put everything in your corner. Do everything you can to make things better for yourself, not harder on yourself. You go out here and you get you an inline and all this stuff so it makes it more reliable. That's in most people's head. It's not really any more reliable than a good side lock loaded properly, period. It's not. But in most people, they're going for what's more reliable. An inline muzzleloader. It's more reliable. And then modern bullets, because they're more reliable than old-fashioned lead bullets and all that kind of stuff, which of course they're not, but and velocities in the black powder category, lead bullets are great. They work just fine, better than the most jacketed bullets and all that. But you've got this inline to in your mind and whatever to be more reliable. Then you go out here and you pick a powder that's hard to ignite. As far as I'm personally ever come up on, it's the hardest to ignite powder that I personally have ever had anything to do with. And it does take a 209, which is, we know by using 209, full house 209s, it creates problems. Not every time you shoot, but it does create problems. And if you're not using a full house 209, you're really going to have problems. Now, the first time that I was ever exposed to blackhorn, a friend of mine had that stuff, and he comes out here to the farm. This is the latest and greatest and all that kind of stuff. And right off the bat, ignition problems. Right off the bat, ignition problems. All kinds of problems with it. But he was just sold on it, and it's the greatest, latest and greatest, and all that. And I said, that stuff's going to cost you a deer. Mark my words, that stuff's going to cost you a deer. Well, it did. Oh, that year it did. Not only did it cost him a deer, it cost him a buck, a big buck, a very big buck. Do you think he's still using blackhorn? Nobody. Just like my nephew, my friend out here the other day, having all kinds of problems, could not get that stuff to reliably go on a nice day, a good, dry, warm day, couldn't get it to go off. What are they going to do on a cold, damp day? You're going to have to use full house 209s. That's about the only thing that stands a chance of igniting that stuff. And by using a full house 209, now you run the risk of it doing all the stuff that happened when people used a full house 209. Obstructions in your barrel and all that kind of stuff. Why? And I would say if you took a survey data, that's probably some of the most popular stuff it is among the people I know. Blackhorn. Ain't no way you'll find any of that stuff out here in my powder cache. It just ain't gonna happen. I believe in making things easy on myself, not hard on myself. But there again, most hunters just don't study enough. They just don't observe enough. Most hunters just, if the hunting season ain't on, they're not even thinking about their gun or shooting or nothing else. There's so much stuff today to entertain people that unless you're a confirmed gun nut like myself, you just don't study that stuff, But when you study it and apply it and you observe it, and you over here at the club, you got hundreds of people shooting it. You can observe all kinds of stuff. And when you see people out there and it's misfired and this, and that, and the other, and the preponderance of misfires are coming from Blackhorn 209, don't take a real smart person to figure out maybe might be a problem here. So anyway, the boys are coming back to finish zeroing their guns. And they left here, going in search of trying to find them some bullets. Of course, they're going to get the modern savage bullets and all that. But they're searching for something else, like specifically 777. One of the boys had a little bit of 777, and I said, try that in your gun. I mean, this is what you used to use. You never had any problem before. Try it in there now. So he loaded him up a couple with 777 and instantaneous ignition and touching bullet holes at 100 yards. What else can you ask for? So he's off in search of 777. And one of the boys I talked to on the phone, and he found him some 777. And he ditched his Blackhorn. So, and with the 777 and his reduced power 209 muzzleloader primers, he won't have any problem. But if he insisted on using that Blackhorn, which I have, whatever theoretical advantage that Blackhorn would have over 777 or Pyrodex, whatever theoretical or actual advantage it might have over, say, 777 or Pyrodex, the fact that ignition with it is so hard to do or so unreliable, it just don't make sense to me. Reliability to me should be the number one thing. It should be reliable. When you pull that trigger, it should go bang, not boom, that boom. No, it should be instantaneous. Even a good functioning, properly loaded flintlock is practically instantaneous. It's not exactly. There is a ever so slight delay, but for all practical purposes, it's instant. Even a flintlock. But with properly loaded camp lock, side lock, camp lock, it is instantaneous. There is no hesitation whatsoever. But a good flintlock, there's practically none. I mean, if you're really observant, there is an ever so slight, I mean a slight hesitation often. It's a slight hesitation before the main charge goes off. But Blackhorn, with anything but a full house 309, it's a boom, a long hang fire, a dangerous hang fire. So, Lordy mercy. Anyway, the boys will be back out here with some powder that hopefully they can ignite. Sat here all evening, piddling around with trying to get their gun to quit misfiring, thinking there's something wrong with the gun. And the only thing wrong with it, they had powder that it's just about as hard to ignite as holding a match to a log. And speaking of that, let me go on one more thing. If you're going to go and get any kind of a propellant, for heaven's sake, get loose powder. We're speaking of putting things against you or in your favor. When you use pellets, when you use the pellets are inherently harder to ignite than loose powder. Just like fine shaved kindling is much easier to ignite with a match than a log is. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. That big old chunk, that big old pellet is harder to ignite than loose powder. So they take this chunk and they coat it with something to try to help it to ignite, but why go through all that? Just so you can open up some kind of a case, then you've got to pick out these individual little pellets and put them down the barrel. What the devil is hard about getting your powder measure, filling it full of powder and dumping that down your barrel? If you ain't got time to do that, how in the world you got time to go hunting? Gosh almighty. It amazes me and that something that really works is so hard to put across to the general public, but if it's a gimmick, they flock to it. But anyway, when it comes to muzzleloaders, if you use your inlines if you want, they're not for me. I mean, I like traditional stuff, but use whatever you want. If whether you use an inline, flint, side lock percussion, whatever it is, do everything you can to stack things in your favor. Don't do something to make it harder and more unreliable on yourself. So in your ignitions, in your choice of powder, find something that ignites reliably, and it don't take a flamethrower to set it off. It will go off with a reasonable ignition system, 10s, 11, musket caps, reduced power, 309s, a choice of powder that's reliable, and whatever your ignition system is, whether it be muzzleloader, 309 or 209s, or number 10s, 11, or musket caps, whatever. Just develop a reliable ignition system. If your ignition system is not reliable and you go hunting, it might work most of the time on the bench, but when the buck of a lifetime steps out there, chances are that's when it's going to fail. I've seen that happen several times. And I've been trying to tell people that stuff's going to cost you a deer before it's over. Those pellets are going to cost you a deer before it's over. That blackhorn is going to cost you a deer before it's over. And in virtually every case, it has. Now, can I positively say that pellet's what caused the misfire? Can I positively say that blackhorn's what caused the misfire? No. But I can say chances are it did because I've observed it so many times. When you observe something so many times that you can predict what's going to happen, it's fairly reliable. So anyway, I'm going to sit out here and enjoy the afternoon for a while yet, see what happens, and we'll talk later. I'm going to enjoy the afternoon looking at it through my rose-colored glasses. Talk soon.